Today we'll be discussing the Global Foundations Core, which is the signature experience of the sophomore year. My name is Tom Lenz, and I'm chairman of the undergraduate program and was the chairperson of the I-Core task force that involved the new design for this program. And my colleagues?
I'm Tatiana Kolovu. I'm a senior lecturer for business communication and professional skills in the Kelley School of Business and a member of the task force.
And I'm Ray Burke. I'm a professor of marketing and also was a member of the task force.
And I'm Gail Fairfield, also a member of the task force, associate director for the undergraduate program. I manage advising and also curriculum change processes.
Ray, perhaps you could start us out by talking a bit about the new 270 course that's part
so
of the curriculum.
We've put together an exciting group of courses, and it really starts with the D270 course, which provides a foundation for thinking about global business. The course looks across all the different regions of the world and thinks about the various elements that would affect how you might set up and run a business in the country. So you think about the political and economic environment, you think about the cultural environment, the infrastructure that would be available, the legal environment. And the course looks across all those different factors. So one of the examples that we've used to talk about this is if you were opening, let's say, a hotel in a certain part of the world. If it's in the Middle East, there would be a different set of considerations versus if it was in Latin America or in Asia. And as part of the course, the students do a country analysis, and they're given a toolkit of resources. This includes online resources to be able to research different regions of the world and to understand and profile these dimensions, and then analytic tools also to analyze the characteristics of the region and identify the impact on business practice.
So the heart of that is the country analysis, sort of the central feature that the students would learn.
And I think what is a unique feature of this new program is that now this is a requirement for all the students. Mm-hmm. So they have this as a base, and then other courses that they take in their sophomore, junior, and senior years can build on this so that they can use these tools as they go deeper into the functional areas and as they look at specific regions of the world.
Okay. And I will say, we have just a little bit of feedback from students so far, because now we've had this course for 2 semesters, mm-hmm. and I will say that the students are very engaged and impressed by mm-hmm. D270. Even, usually you get a rollout semester that's kind of still working out the kinks. They were impressed from the beginning, and they really have come away from it going, wow, I have a different way of analyzing. I have a different, and this is unsolicited, just comments that they have made, a mm-hmm. different way of looking at global business. So far so good. I think it's mm-hmm. being extremely effective.
No, it is a fast-paced course. It's just
very fast.
a half semester,
mm-hmm.
it's an 8-week course, mm-hmm. And so you move students very quickly to get this foundation, and then we transition into the 271 and 272 courses.
Now, when they take D270, they're also doing the G202, Business, Government, and Society. Tom, do you want to talk a little bit about what happens in that course?
Yes, I'd be glad to. The Business, Government, and Society course has a different focus from D270. And one of the things that we wanted students to see is that there are many things that affect global strategies of business that really have nothing to do with what I call pure economics. Mm-hmm. For example, that course, the course really focuses on non-market forces. If I had to say there's one main theme of that course, it's the non-market elements, because we wanted students to see that national economic policies about economic development. For example, if you take the nation of India, until recently limited foreign investment. So when global companies tried to invest in India, yes, they could invest, but they could only have a minority position. So the majority position was owned by native Indian companies, which means the future of the global company was in the hands of the members of another nation that may have had other goals in terms of employment and that sort of thing. So we wanted the students to realize that as you go from place to place in the world, there are non-market factors that influence the global strategies of firms, and have some sense of what those may be like. And so that course, Business, Government, and Society, I think provides that very general, broad framework that lets them see that in different parts of the world, here are some of the factors that come into play. And then, as Ray was saying, they go into more of a factor of country analysis with that as context and say, okay, what can we do in terms of investment decisions country by country? So I think the two are just marvelous complements to each other.
And sometimes the students do take them together, and sometimes they take them in separate semesters. So they complement each other, but there's not a rule about one has to come first or they have to be taken. And remember, we had a big conversation about that. We were going to try to make them take the whole global core all at once, and then we ran into how problematic that would be with student schedules and et cetera. And so we finally ended up breaking them out, seeing them as a core, but not requiring them, all at the same time.
What I like the best is when they do take D270 and G202 first, then they're better prepared for X271 or X272, because in order to dive into what we call global business analysis, 1.5 credits, again, 8 weeks of a dive into one area of the world. So if you want to focus on South America, or more specifically Brazil, or if you want to focus on Switzerland or Argentina or Greece, you look at and take the country analysis that you did and then start looking specifically on how is business done in that part of the world based on the current economic situation, political situation, legal system. The beauty of how we've designed this is that we require for all of our students to do 1.5 credit hours of X271 in the classroom, which, again, trying to understand the business culture of a country is challenging if you don't travel there. And as we start rolling off these classes, I know there's great plans for interacting with people from other countries that are there, or having people come into virtual lectures, or connecting them with the students in those parts of the world. We also have the option for students, if they want more credits, it's not required, that they do the immersion class, which is 3 credit hours, again 8 weeks, and it's usually the second part of the semester that's followed by a 10-day trip in country, which I've talked a little bit about in a previous class, but that's X272, where the work that's been done in the classroom is followed up with an immersion trip that has a lot of business visits and connections with locals that help students understand how it all works there. And that's really an eye-opening experience for them too. So D270, G202, X271, 5 credit hours that are required, option to move up to more credits if they want and they prefer to travel. All that happens in the sophomore year. They work in teams and group projects, and we have one more course that we recommend, Compass, correct, Gail?
Well, and it is also required, not necessarily taken, again, at the same time, but it's all happening kind of in the context of the sophomore year. And Compass, we have a Compass series of courses, which is a first year, second year, third year. And in fact, we've begun to think of it more as one course divided into 3 years rather than 3 courses. So, but the second part of it, the Compass 2 part, which is called the team, happens in sophomore year along with the global core. And the thing that's very cool about the team course is that it does not only helps the students really learn how to work in teams and go through the forming, storming, norming, and all those phases, and understand what they are in terms of team development and how to get out of the problems and how to deal with issues that come up in teams. So they're going to get a deep dive into that, which will certainly help them in the global core courses and in any other course they take. The second piece, though, or there are 2 other pieces for the Compass 2. One piece is sort of a critical thinking piece, and that is sort of woven into that whole course in a way that really supports all this analysis that they're doing in the other courses. And then the third piece is the cross-cultural nature of teams. So they're going to be working in some virtual teams where they have to work with people from other regions or countries, or if we can get countries, but at least regions of the U.S. that have other demographics. So they're really working on trying to figure that out. And then even within their own teams, they're going to be very much addressing the cross-cultural components and the issues of how do you work with other people who come from a different background, whether that different background is, a farm in Indiana versus New York City, or whether it's, China versus the farm in Indiana, whatever it might be. So I think that the skill building that they're going to do in that Compass 2 course. Not to mention they have a whole bunch of professional stuff, which I shouldn't just glide over because that's a big part of the course too. But all that skill building I think is going to help them just in multiple ways as they do the global core as well as their other courses.
One of the things that we said at the onset is that this was the signature experience of the sophomore year. And I think by looking at the Compass course that runs in parallel, as you said, to the other courses that comprise the Global Foundations core, it's really integrated. The courses are related to one another, so that gives it a core concept, and that's the nature of that experience.
In that second year of the program, there are different pedagogies that we're using. So in the CREFT course, G202, they're doing case-based teaching. In the D270, it's more lecture and exercises in the class. And then we have the immersion, the international travel. And I think that that's also something that is innovative about this. It's not, you don't just pick up a textbook on global issues and you do the course.
Chapter 1 this week.
There is no
Exactly.
textbook.
Exactly.
I think it's a very valid, totally important point.
Right.
That the students are getting this stuff, all this stuff from very different, even if you throw Compass 2 back in.
Right.
It's a small class, very focused on small group work and teamwork and, getting to know each other in the class really well and compared to some larger lectures. So they have all these different contexts and pedagogies for learning that just even appeals to different students' learning styles.
Absolutely.
I mean, go back to sort of basic teaching, concepts. It's like, you need to approach different students different ways, and it's sort of built in.
Right.
Is what
Right.
you're saying. Is
Yeah.
because these courses lend themselves to being taught differently, they're going to support different students.
Yeah. And we're leveraging technology as
And-
part of this
and
as well.
absolutely technology,
In the
yeah.
G202 course, we're doing this kind of hybrid learning model, so students are doing things online before they come into class, so you can leverage the class for discussion of the cases. We're bringing in speakers, international speakers, using telecommunication. So it is very innovative.
It's very cool.
But before we leave that, I'd like to talk a little bit about what preceded it. How did we used to do it when we had the international dimension requirement, and how is this different from it? And so, Gail, because of the role you play in part of all the scheduling requirements on the task force, I wonder if you kind of start us off into what you see some of the big differences in the Global Foundations core.
Huge difference. The requirement we had before, the international dimension requirement, was really 6 credits of something international. Just anything. And it could be 6 credits of courses in the business school related to something international finance, international marketing, that kind of thing. Or it could have been just 6 credits of culturally related courses in the College of Arts and Sciences, or it could be study abroad, or it could be language. So they had different ways to satisfy that requirement. But whatever way they chose, they tended to make it very efficient. So I'm going to get a Spanish minor anyway, so I'll just use those courses for my international dimension requirement. I'm going to get a finance major anyway, so I'll just be sure that one of my electives is the international finance course, and I'll throw in this other thing. It had much more of a checklist feel to it. Just take 6, okay, what's offered between 10 and 2 in the afternoon that isn't too far to walk, that I can, check it off. So there wasn't a sense of deliberateness about it, or a feeling of how does this really tie to my business education? How does this really tie to what I'm going to be doing when I go out in the world? So the international dimension requirement, I think, was a good first step. And in fact, IU now, as part of its general education, requires the world languages and culture requirement. And so a lot of what we used to do in the international dimension requirement is now actually being addressed by the university as a whole. So students still have to study abroad or take culture courses or do language. So that piece is still happening, but we felt, I think, that that wasn't enough to become a global business person because it really was such a light touch. It didn't have this connection.
Yeah, that's one of the differences I see is the integrative nature of it. And Ray, how do you feel about
Well, I think that there are two issues that we were also attempting to address here. I think one was that in the earlier, with the earlier requirement, you'd have students who would be filling in these courses in their junior or senior year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so then you wouldn't have that foundation that you could
Yeah.
build on in the I-Core in the junior year and in their major courses. So now we've moved that earlier to sophomore, and you can have students. We talked a little bit about the international travel experience, that we can have students do that at the end of their sophomore year, and so now they have their junior year available to do internships, which could potentially have an international component. And I think that the other issue, which we hinted at before, was the diversity of the experience for the students. If you had people doing so many different approaches to satisfying this requirement, language and cultural studies and so forth, that you did not have a solid global foundation for students as part of the business program. And I think that having this be in the new program, having this be a requirement really addresses that concern.
I remember the discussions about the case in the I-Core program. Remember how we said how students, when we did focus groups, they commented on how they would have liked to see more of an international approach to, not all of the cases regarded international companies. I think our students are better equipped to ask better questions now on approaching a question of should this U.S. company open abroad or should this international company expand in the U.S. I
Right.
think 4 or 5 years ago, they would have approached it from a very American viewpoint of here's how the U.S. companies think and here's how we approach it. Now our graduates will think definitely much more globally. I was thinking, how is this different? G202 and D270 are pretty much called for, but we have X271 and X272 that faculty have the opportunity to design new courses around and use their own expertise. I want to ask both of you who are, Tom and Ray, who are reviewing the proposals that are coming through. Are you seeing excitement from our faculty about expanding their teaching horizons and using leveraging their strengths and their knowledge of places around the world?
Well, just to start us off, when we first put out the solicitation to departments and faculty, which was really an invitation to create a brand new course. And as we all know from being on the task force, it was sort of an assumption that our culture of our school, given an invitation, would respond. However, there was no guarantee of response. There was just an invitation. So when we put out the invitation, it was very interesting to see who responded and why and what that will mean to the program. I've been thrilled by the responses. Let me just say that. You were a longtime international teacher, so the course you created for the Greek experience essentially was the paradigm that we shared with all the others from the course proposals. But we have had an array of proposals that have just been fantastic, and I'm so proud of the first set that will be put before the students coming up, because in some cases, frankly, it exceeded my expectations. There were faculty who came forth with course proposals that I didn't dream that they might, and they're intensely excited about it, and some of them have come forth with more than one proposal and more than one format, as you know from your own teaching, Tatiana, both
Sure.
the residential and travel component. So I've been absolutely thrilled by what I've seen, and I truly believe that in years hence, since this is just our first time through, that over 2 or 3 years, it's going to awaken faculty to opportunities to express their teaching and research in an international sphere, where that venue has never existed before.
Right.
This was
Right.
really sort of an
Absolutely.
invitation. So
Yeah.
I
I've
remember-
been thrilled by it.
You remember at the very beginning, there was a little moment when some of the departments were saying, well, can we just retool an existing
Yes,
course and make
yes.
it, we have the senior level international blah course. Can we just kind of retool it for the sophomore level? And I remember you saying very clearly, no, that's not what we're looking for. It's not a retooled senior level course. We want a new thing.
Yes.
Then they got so
Yeah.
excited, right?
Yeah, and that was really key because
Yeah.
we did not want to disrupt the major structure. We were very careful about that, and the courses we've seen are exciting, brand new ideas.
And it taps into a resource that we really hadn't been leveraging before.
Absolutely.
We had the faculty who have great international experience in a variety of different
Yeah,
areas.
yeah, absolutely.
And they, by teaching just the standard courses in the past, they didn't have an opportunity to express and develop that teaching area. And so now this gives them a platform to do that. And I think it's great when you can have faculty, they're certainly going to have certain courses that are required courses that have to be staffed, but then also to have something that they're really
Fun.
passionate about that
Yeah,
connects with their background and their
Mm-hmm.
research interests, and that's how it's working out.
Yeah, it's very, and the students are excited because they look at those topics, they're looking ahead, they're wanting to know ahead, so it's a good thing we know now what will be offered next spring because they're planning already, both for the on-campus version and the versions with travel. They want to know where they're going to be. But they're looking equally, I think, at the country involved or the region involved, and also the department and the focus of the faculty. So they might just say, oh, I want to do Europe, so whoever's doing something about Europe, I'll do that one. But they might also say, I think I'm going to be a finance major, and this finance faculty is teaching, doing something here, so I'll choose that one because of the faculty members. So it's very interesting to watch the students sort of figure out what is their, what's more interesting to them, the location, the department, or somehow, both. And I suspect that over time, certain faculty and certain trips will get quite a following, and quite a reputation, just like Tatiana's Greece class now, it, fills right up. I mean, it has this fabulous reputation, and I think that will begin to happen.
And it gives you the best of both worlds. So you've got this required component of the Global Foundations core that gives everyone this background that they can use in their courses, but then also they can customize the degree and focus on the specific areas that they're interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a terrific benefit. And, as we were working through the new design, the AACSB International published a report titled The Globalization of Management Education. Very,
timing.
very, very thick.
This thick, yeah.
And so I went through and read it, said, gee, I wonder what others are thinking. And our timing could not have been better. The main theme that came out of that research, which was an international sort of survey of how globalization was being taught, is that it is not central and it is not integrated. So making it a requirement makes it central as far as our students are concerned. It's part of their sequencing of their degree. And making it integrated where our faculty take the time and make the effort to show students the relationships among what they're learning, whether it's politics, economics, non-market forces, country analysis, and to give that holistic view that before was only characteristic of the junior year when we had the integrative core, finance, marketing, operations, and strategy. So I think it's going to accelerate the development of these sophomores in ways that are going to be just incredible in terms of their sophistication and preparation for their careers. And it'll have some interesting, I think, downstream effects too. We've talked to the integrative core faculty that is still being taught in the junior year, and said the students you see will be very different than the ones you've seen in these ways. And I've been encouraged certainly by the reaction of the faculty because the ball is in their court, saying how do you now take I-Core to the point of it's global, as you mentioned earlier. The students were asking for that. And now with the students coming in such a sophisticated preparation, I think it's really going to transform I-Core. And it may have some transformations downstream. Ray, I don't know, you're a former chairman of the marketing department, as you look at over the next 3 or 4 years, saying what happens when this wave starts to pass through the program. I don't know what effects you may see.
And so when students are thinking about their courses in the functional areas like marketing, we have courses that have a global component to them. we have the international marketing course, for example, that Greg Kitzmiller teaches, and it lets him start further into the materials so that he can accomplish more. And he can also do a better job of leveraging the international backgrounds of the students who were in the class. I think that that's one of the ways that, you know, in the past it has been a concern that students don't always respect the diversity that we have here at this school. The students have backgrounds from so many different areas. And I think with this in the sophomore year, we'll have better integration of students into teams in the following years, that the students will value this diversity, and that'll open the opportunity for projects and collaboration in the classroom that we haven't had before. So, you know, letting faculty go further with their courses, having students who already have this kind of mindset is going to be very valuable.
I'm wondering what it might bring up for students who start asking different kinds of questions. Not just in international marketing, but just in any regular marketing course.
Right.
It occurs to me that they might start asking, well, how does this apply here? Or what happens there?
Speaking of questions, having been with 19 of our students overseas, every one of our company visits, the host said, how old are they? What year are they? Those questions, they're smart. Everywhere we went, the follow-up was about that because they were prepared. They asked very pertinent questions. They had done their homework. They impressed people everywhere we went. So I'm so excited to know that that's the DNA of the students we're producing right into the senior year.
You know, to that point, it's often easy to look at curricular change as just rearranging courses or renaming or changing subject matter. And I think the impact of this is cultural. Because one of my concerns of the undergraduate student body is the extent to which students from abroad can come into our program and spend either 4 or 3 years, depending on when they're admitted, and not really know American students and vice versa, or know each other in any degree of depth that they will need to be successful in a career. A lot of our students could end up on global task forces or having to deal with units abroad within 3 to 5 years of their first job. And I really believe the Global Foundations Core is going to give them a degree of sophistication in dealing with people and really appreciating and respecting the differences in culture, business practices. I know your course, business culture in Greece is just about that, and I'm sure Greek business practices are a reflection of the inherent nature of Greek culture. And if our students can come to think like that, I think they're going to be much better prepared to move up rapidly in an organization. Not to diminish technical skills in a specialism, we all start out in a specialty, but to have a mindset that says, yes, I see the specialty, but we're in a global environment, and my lead partner may be in Shanghai or maybe in some other nation, and just to have that mindset and know how to begin to operate in a sophisticated way, I think will really accelerate the movement of our students in corporations.
Yeah, it makes me feel that having language is fabulous and so important, but I think you can finish 4 years of college language and still not have any cultural sense. You just are proficient with, it's kind of like you can do math, you can do French, you can do the language. So unless you were doing a minor and went on to take cultural courses and all of that, you could do a language and not really still have any understanding of business in that country or the cultural impact of that country. So I'd love to see students, pairing what we're doing with language studies and all those other kinds of things. But I almost feel as if they can go do business in another country or with people from another country. If they have to have an interpreter, they have to have an interpreter. And having some language is really useful. But having an open mind and an ability to get inside a different cultural context is really, I think, what we're trying to get at.
Yeah, I think you've hit on a key point. One time, out of curiosity, I just went out on the internet and said how many languages are spoken in IBM. I wanted that information for a presentation and talk I was leading, and it was well over 100 languages. And so to your point, Gail, the mastery of one or two languages or three is certainly laudatory. You want that. But it doesn't address the issue of cultural interdependence and differences in philosophy towards economics. And you know, in the United States, we watch the stock market all the time. I mean, it's a feed across some monitors and corporations. There are other parts of the world, and they're saying, why are you worried about that? What does that have to do with anything? And to go into that culture and see how that shapes behavior, I think our students are really going to have a heads up in understanding that.
Can you think of any other rationale for all the cups of coffee that we consumed and the hours we spend?
Well, from you know, I as a member of the task force and worked with you guys every minute over 2 years and 2 years and 1 month that it took to go from our first meeting to approval. I really think that from my standpoint that the Kelley School historically has been viewed as, I think legitimately, as a leading school in terms of the innovation in undergraduate education. When I first took my job as chair of the undergraduate program, I went back and reviewed faculty meeting notes from starting in the early 60s and going forward. And I was just curious, and they dug them out of the archives over at the university, and I read through them and wondered what happened. I was especially interested in I-Core. Because I think I-Core marked a innovative feature that got national visibility. There's always been innovative things going on in the Kelley School, but some of them really capture attention. And there was a time when I-Core was first integrated that other universities came here to see how on earth are you doing that, because it is so difficult to get faculty to collaborate in a meaningful way and to integrate in a way that isn't insulting to students, yet it sort of illuminates the relationships. I feel that if we want to maintain that status and maybe enhance it, it's imperative that the undergraduate program be seen as leading in the evolution and development of undergraduate business education. I think this is one way. I am so pleased with this because there are so many schools struggling now to say, how do you build an integrative curriculum and co-curricular experience around something called globalization. And I really think that we're a long way in answering that question. We've taken a big step. And to see the impact it'll have on downstream on the I-Core, and as Ray was commenting, majors within various departments, to me, that was really the driving force. We've claimed that territory of innovation. It's up to us to continue to innovate. And by no means can it stop with what's being done right now. This is just a step along the way. So from my point of view, that's one of the reasons I was so thrilled with the work that the committee did and the reaction of the faculty.
I think we're fortunate to have a culture at the school that supports this kind of innovation. Whenever you want to change requirements, and you're adding and deleting credits, and there certainly are concerns that are raised about staffing and the individual agendas of departments and faculty. And we were very fortunate to have the school come together on this and support it, and people giving us the flexibility to try it out, and see how it works. And I think that we're realizing the benefit of that.
To that point, Ray, when we were first working on these curricular options and said that one of the things we would do is send out invitations to faculties for new course proposals, someone came up to me and said, you could end up with none. Zero may be the answer.
You knew that.
And so I said, yeah, I'll take that observation. But I'm like you, knowing the culture and the colleagues and the collegial relationships, the increasing diversity of our faculty in terms of national origin and interest. And so many of our faculty have taken Fulbrights abroad or their research programs abroad. I'm like you, Ray. And all of you were very intensely confident that, yes, this culture will produce some fantastic ideas, but you have to first create the venue for the idea. Merely saying you want something without the opportunity is meaningless. And so I think the combination of here's a venue, and we've got this great faculty, and I truly believe we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg in terms of creativity.
I think it's going to attract when departments go out to do hires.
Yes.
I think it's going to attract
students.
a certain kind of faculty, people with a little bit of, I could do that there. Besides teach my basic X course, I could have this other thing. I think it will be very attractive.
And I think it's going to be difficult to imitate. The heart of it, of course, is culture. is I think when other schools look at how do you produce that, there are some university cultures and school cultures, professional school cultures, where independence and external focus is the name of the game.
I want to point out one other thing too, and that is coming from the position of professional staff, that one of the other things that really makes this work, particularly the
Immersion.
travel piece, is that faculty are very willing and even eager to collaborate with staff. And the staff really have to do the brunt of the planning and the organizing and the making the hotels and, you know, getting all of that stuff set up, as well as the sort of, we send staff on all of the travel trips, and the staff do a lot of the herding and the organizing and the engaging with the students. And these are mostly often academic advisors who also see the students throughout the school year and in other kinds of contexts. I guess I'm trying to point out that that collaborative sense of the faculty also extends in our school anyway to faculty quite willingly collaborating with professional staff in a way that I don't see everywhere. You know, I don't see that level of kind of mutual respect and true sort of working together. I mean, the fact that I was even on the task force is very unique. That doesn't happen everywhere. So there's that extension of that collaborative sense, I think.
Yeah, that's certainly the hallmark of what we've done so far. It's a very exciting time.
So that was I'm sorry.
Oh, no, please.
The behind the scenes of Global Foundation's core, of what it is and why it happened and how it happens, and all the thoughts and win-wins that happen with the design of a course like this, and our wishes and hopes for the future to make it even better and enhance the Kelly School experience. In the next section, we'll talk a little more about how does that influence the relationships with faculty and staff, and how did we really get to recruit more ideas across the school and develop the first year rollout of the Global Foundation's core.